the earth. He could hear River's toes dig into the earth not far from where he had situated himself. River was in a similar position, lying flat on the ground, under the cover of darkness and foliage, eye to the scope of a military sniper rifle. The team was below. Last reported, they had retrieved 4 hostages and were coming out. The perps inside were dead, but there were still 3 unknown suspects roaming the property. A shadow materialized from the corner of the house below. "South side, 200 yards, he murmured. He released his breath and squeezed the trigger. The shadow stumbled into view and the suspect dropped to the ground as the guy's semi-automatic weapon skidded across the pavement. "1 down, 2 to go," River whispered. "We don't have time to wait. One of the hostages is bleeding out," Captain Maddox Stone rasped. "Copy," he said. "Go when you're ready." "Dispatch, you got that chopper waiting?" the captain barked into the comm. "Copy that, Alpha Team," Sam's voice came over the mic. She gave the team a sense of normalcy, reminding them that home was waiting. His unit came out of the house and turned left. Hunched over, in formation, they had a hostage between each team member's body, providing what cover they could with the body armor they wore. The hostages were embassy workers, civilians. Rumors had started a week ago of an embassy takeover, and after the 2019 attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, the Secretary of Defense hadn't taken any chances. The hostiles had already infiltrated the building by the time his unit had arrived, but the perps hadn't been inside long enough to kill anyone. The Secretary of Defense sent in the best of the best, his Special Forces unit known as Infinity. "Get in, get out, bring the staff home," the SOD had ordered. Infinity did what they did best and would get the job done. A loud siren filled the air, and on the north side of the house, lights flashed. "Cat's out of the bag," he grunted and lunged upward. Snatching his rifle, he jumped down the steep incline with River on his ass. They raced through the dark trees toward the team. Gunfire erupted and perps started shouting. Dillon ran faster, blood pumping, his eyes peeled for anything in his way that could possibly stop him from reaching their unit. Ahead of them was the tail end of his team. Blade always took up the rear when she was covering their asses from afar, otherwise that was his job. He had no doubt that if something were to happen to him, she'd get the job done. She was one badass motherfucker, and a hell of a soldier. "Base, we may need reinforcements," Maddox grunted into the mic. "Roger that, Alpha Team." Sam's calm voice came over the mic. A shadow lunged out and Blade ducked, coming up with her knife, but the guy had a gun. Dillon put 2 in the fucker's chest and then leaped over the dead body. It was all done without stopping, and the 3 of them ran to close the widening gap between them and the team. Captain Maddox Stone set a brutal pace, but River easily caught up to the guy. River made it his mission to watch Maddox's flank like he owned it, which he did because they were a couple. Dillon spun and took up the rear, and Blade hurried to help one of the hostages pick up the pace. She wrapped her arm around the woman's waist and half-carried her forward. They moved silently except for the hostages. There was no way to keep them quiet. In another minute, the chopper came into view, but the noise on their 6 was growing, and Dillon knew it was only a matter of time before the perps would reach them. The unit started lifting people into the rescue hawk. Dillon turned and faced the way they'd come and dropped to one knee. He lifted his weapon to his shoulder and aimed the scope at the line of trees. He put 1 into the first perp that stepped into the clearing brandishing a rifle. 5 more followed, but then there were too many to count. Bullets hit the dirt and grass flew into the air nearby. He settled his breathing as he continued firing at the edge of the trees. He'd take out as many of them as possible before he left this earth. "Dillon, fall back," Maddox snapped out the order. He didn't hesitate. He sent several more rounds toward the trees and lunged to his feet. Racing toward the chopper, he kept firing. Ethan and Blade stepped up to provide him cover. The enemy kept coming out of the trees. Suddenly, the roar of an RAH Comanche helo lifted above their heads and sent a barrage of gunfire into the perps and tree line. He hadn't even heard the fucking thing approaching. Trees splintered under the impact of the helo's weapon, and the enemy fell. Dillon leaped into the rescue chopper and grabbed a strap. The rescue hawk lifted into the air as the Comanche provided cover fire. Dillon